Great, thanks, Jesse. Okay.
It's really warm. It's great.
We got that. All right, welcome everybody to the October 16th, Caroline Town Board meeting. And we have some guests here. Well, first of all, I will offer an opportunity for privilege of the floor. Oh, the pledge. Oh, yeah. Sure, I'll start with the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, and now we do have opportunity for privilege of the floor. And I see there's one person joining us from Zoom land, and Harry is joining us tonight in actual person. And I met Harry this afternoon out while I was eating an apple in front of the town hall, and he was walking his dog. And so Harry is a newly arrived resident who's living a catty corner across the street at the farm there, right?
Right.
Great.
Thank you.
So, and
Good to be here.
thanks for coming to the meeting. So it's great. So I guess, is there anyone that wishes to address the board at privilege of the floor from the public? So not seeing anything in Zoom, so I'll move on to the agenda. And I will, so this is Roxy Johnson and Rebecca Minas, who are here to talk to us about a build out analysis that they've been working on. And so, and I shared the documents that Rebecca sent us earlier with you. So I will turn it over to you all to start, and I can share my screen and your presentation whenever you'd like me to do that.
Great, okay, if you want to pull it up.
Okay.
Now that's ready, and now we can sort of stand and I want to look there and look this way, so we'll kind of. But Roxy's gonna kick us off, right?
Yeah, so this is one of the, so I'm the lab director at the drinking water plant and also watershed coordinator for the city of Ithaca as a whole. So this is our first watershed plan that we've ever had, even though we've been using 6 Mile Creek as our source water since the late 1800s. And we've kind of taken the watershed for granted. It's been a great source, you know, it's beautiful with the waterfalls and the gorges and supports brook trout. But as climate change comes in, we're seeing some more pressures with the storms. We're gonna get more erosion, which Town of Caroline has a watersheds committee, has had since the early mid-90s. So you're well aware of the flooding impacts. For our end, it's the sediment delivered from your backyards that's an impact for us. And now we actually have some vulnerability to harmful algae blooms, even though our source is a stream, because we have a reservoir that was finished in 1912 that we have never dredged yet. We're working on that. So we have like ponding, you know, still water that's very shallow and warm. Anyway, the point of all that is it was high time for us to actually consider source water protection a part of the first part of our water treatment process and to intentionally invest in that. I personally have wanted to have a watershed plan before I retire. And then this came along in 2019. It's free, so there's reason one to get into it, and DEC and DOH together were providing this. And part of it is that they give you a technical service provider that walks you through a menu basically that gets you right through the process of like visioning and your problems, and Rebecca will go over that. But what's new about it is that it also gives you an implementation plan. And so you can just, it's not just a plan, it's like things you can actually start doing right away. And so this is one of the things we've started doing right away, and we want to share it with all of the municipalities, our partners. The other great thing about this whole process is that instead of the state writing kind of a vulnerability plan for your water system, which they did in the early 2000s for everyone. This is the ground up. And so the people who write it are people that represent all of these towns. And they're also like resource managers, and we had a farmer, and you try to have a business person on, so that you really get broad-based buy-in from the first moment. And then when you get to implementation, you're already working with a team that represents the watershed. So that's why we're in. It's been terrific. And frankly, because of that process of starting with just talking and working with your neighbors, we've had new conversations with people I've known for years that I never had before. You know, now I know that, you know, a highway supervisor here wanted to do a ditch demonstration project. And well, we have interns all the time, and we have a lab, maybe we can take the data for you. We never had those conversations, so there's a lot of intangibles that are coming out of it too. And so I find it really valuable, and this is our biggest project to date. And so I'm gonna turn over and let Rebecca share about the project.
Thanks, Roxy. Mark, if you wanna hit slideshow, it'll just be a bit bigger, some of the.
Let's see.
Should look like a movie screen.
It's full
Up
screen.
there is one of your options.
We're going to do that. So let's see.
Over on the left, I think on the top.
Oh, yeah, it's hidden by the Zoom thing.
I think this one way up at the top. Way
See where
button.
she's pointing? Yeah,
This one?
High,
All the way up.
all the way up.
way up.
Oh,
To the left of
Yeah.
you.
oh, this?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it's probably start from the beginning.
Good.
Good, very good.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm here to talk about the implementation plan that Roxy just mentioned, which is an implementation project from the DWSB2. And in order to talk about that, probably I just wanted to sort of very quickly go through the DWSB2 plan and what that is. Are any of you familiar with it in any way, program? So it stands for Drinking Water Source Protection Plan. And as Roxy said, it's a program through the state to develop a watershed plan, as Roxy mentioned. So I'm gonna try and go very quickly through just sort of the steps of developing a plan so that you kind of get that big picture understanding of what the city of Ithaca has just been through. And then we'll get into a little bit more detail on the project. Roxy and I and a couple of colleagues did a 90-minute presentation last week. I've tried to jam that right down to, you know, less than 20 minutes if possible. So I'm gonna try and go through very quickly, but if you are interested, you know, in something particular, have a question, just feel free to stop me. So yeah, that's fine. If you go to the next slide. That's just what I'm gonna talk through I'm gonna talk through the DWSB2 and the build out analysis and next steps Q&A. So in terms of the City of Ithaca's DWSB2 plan, you wanna go to the next slide. I think Roxy sort of covered this, but in the past, state had, or the DOH had swap reports and had sort of a top-down approach that really wasn't resulting in a lot of traction for projects on the ground and, you know, protections of public water. So this was sort of a new approach, as Roxy said, as a bottom-up. It was started in 2017. It's the DEC and the DOH together that administer the program. And you can see here, step one of the program is really to develop a map of the, in this instance, it's a surface water supply, so it's a watershed map. Some of the other DWSB2s that I've worked on are groundwater supply, so the map looks very different. But so you have pretty much all the area here in the watershed that's leading to the intake, which is the green star there at the reservoir. So you can see here what Roxy's, you know, mentioning about the fact that entire water supply watershed area is outside of the city's jurisdiction. So that's where, you know, then we have this process of trying to make connections and communications and relationships in order to, you know, come up with sort of projects that will benefit both the city of Ithaca, their drinking water, and the local municipality. So you can see the 4 municipalities that are our partner municipalities. You want to move forward, Mark, the next
Oh.
slide. Maybe just one
It's
back.
trigger happy here. Right? There we go.
So this gives you a screenshot of the stakeholder group that helped develop the plan. The stakeholder group has expanded now at this point. It does include a representative from the town of Danby and the town of Ithaca now, which is great. So we have all the municipalities represented. So we have what is called a plan management team, and it includes these people from these organizations. We're always looking for, happy to accept more interested people. So that, and we meet periodically to keep up the momentum and move projects forward. The next slide goes through, the next step in the process is really outlining your vision and goals, and it's all to do with protecting the water supply. I won't go through all of that. So then the next step in the process, there's quite a bit of mapping and GIS work, and so this is giving you one of the example maps, which is an inventory of contaminant sources. So it looks at pulling environmental records that are public records to understand where you might have species permits or brownfield sites or mining sites or bulk storage. So anywhere that you might have a potential contaminant source, that's mapped to help the city understand where those point sources might come from. And then the next slide just shows you, one other example of mapping that was completed, and this is a land use map. So starting to, with all the different layers, putting together the pieces of the puzzle of how is land used and where could those potential contaminants come from. The next slide is the next step of the process is then developing protection strategies. So once you sort of understand your the watershed that you're working in, then we start to develop what are some of the protection strategies. There's 4 listed here. I think ultimately for the city of Ithaca there was 16 strategies, but I've just got 4 shown here as an example. The one that the project I'm about to talk about, the build out analysis, really hits on item number 2, which is looking at potential new development, sort of the idea that, what protecting and conserving what we have is going to be easier than going back after the fact and trying to do, projects after the fact. So kind of looking at the potential development pressures and what can be done to try and mitigate that and get out in front of that. So the next slide is an implementation timeline. So once the city of Ithaca's DWSB2 has all the mapping prepared to have developed their strategies and their important critical pollutant parameters that they want to focus on, then the next step and sort of the last step in the program is to create a whole list of projects and project profiles, and including an implementation timeline. So you can see here some examples, and this is just one of a much larger table of implementation strategies. But this one is hitting on the, as I said, the new development within the source water area and the goal of protecting drinking water through zoning amendments. And I know that, Caroline has just gone through a very extensive and long process of creating zoning, adopting zoning. So, we have been conscious of that in developing the project. And, some of the recommendations that we're ultimately going to talk about, I understand that some of these you may have gone through and you may have decided they're not palatable for the community at this moment. It's not the right time, or it's not the right fit. So these are all just thoughts of the findings of the study. For your consideration, and just want to make sure you realize that we were cognizant of that throughout the project. So we were successful in, as Roxy mentioned, the program comes with some implementation money, so it's some money from the state for technical advisors like BNL to help get a few projects off the ground. And so using that funding, we were able to go for 2 grants. One was this build out analysis, which was a New York Sea grant. And the other one was through the CFA, non-ag, non-point source, stream comprehensive plan. So it's a grant for looking at the 6 Mile Creek corridor and looking at prioritizing sites and projects, for future, so you can look at where there might be stability issues, where there might be severe erosion, and sort of look at your next, what your next projects might be. And the city was successful in that grant as well. So we're able to turn that sort of seed money that the state provided into 2 more projects, which is great. And so I guess the next slide just sort of wraps up the.
Rebecca, can I ask a question about this
Yes.
slide? My eye catches the second block down, explore the possibility of a shared code officer with Caroline and Danby.
Mine too.
Did that,
Mine also.
did that come from me, or did that come from, where did that, I mean, well, I'll just give you the background. We're looking for a code officer, so, but is there a rationale there related to the purpose here that is the reason that's in there?
So I can touch on it, not having background, so you want to take that.
But it would have come, so the town of Caroline's representative on the stakeholder and now plan management team is Kristen Hitchcock.
Mhm.
And so that's would have been one of the early ideas of something that would be helpful, that would help improve protections and help unify different towns' approaches to protections in 6 Mile Creek if a code officer was shared. So that's one strategy that could be used.
Mhm.
And so that's how these were developed. You'd start with your problem, and then there'd be a different list of strategies, and if you pursue that one, how you might best pursue that and who your partners might be.
Okay.
That is not actually part of the build out, but it still sits there as a possibility. So yeah, there are all kinds of options in the
Okay.
plan. Yeah.
Very good, yeah.
And so just to dovetail on that, I don't know what the status of the code enforcement officer in Danby is. I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that. He's full-time,
Okay.
but he also works in Spencer, so he's full-time plus. He has helped us out before, and that may have generated some of the commentary or some of the thought about this. So, yeah. To be discussed,
I tell you,
but
all kinds of discussions come out of this plan. It's pretty amazing.
great. Question, Kate,
You go ahead.
or, sorry.
No, you.
I was wondering about the zoning. Have you looked at the Caroline zoning and the water overlay and things like that? I was just.
Yes. We'll get into that in future
Oh,
slides.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm
So
getting
maybe
that.
hold on to that question.
Maybe we answer this one too. You mentioned non-ag point pollution, source pollution.
Non-ag, non-point.
Yeah,
Right.
is ag point source pollution one of the things that are being looked at?
So actually what I said, the non-ag, non-point source pollution, that's the name of the grant. So the
Okay.
grant actually.
Are there grants for ag?
Are there
pollution?
grants for ag? Well, do you want?
That's the WQIP money that Soil and Water accesses a lot. So they take the lead on those projects. Not part of this again, but a separate thing that we have initiated is we now have a contract with Soil and Water to give them some funds every year. There are projects that could go forward if the homeowner or landowner could afford the match, and so it gets stuck there. 5,000 might not be a lot for, our water budget, but it's an awful lot for a homeowner. So we have entered into a contract to help those move forward. Some of them are stream bank stabilization, but some others are like where manure or bedding is stored, or giving them a concrete pad that can be maintained better and slopes away from the stream. So there's a little bit of that happening already.
And that's the map has like a bubble that follows the watershed, and that's within that more critical area.
Yeah,
So outside that, it's the soil and water ag money is not typically available. Cause you're focusing it on the more critical areas.
money through this plan is prioritized in that bubble.
Yeah.
But definitely soil and water does work in the whole water.
I understand.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. Just curious, cause I'm part of the ag committee here in town.
okay.
And so this is the kind of thing that we're here to do, is understand these pools of money and support agriculture in the town. And so, and I have a farm.
Okay.
And so for me, it's weaving all these possibilities together. And I'm in the watershed.
Yeah.
But I'm just outside the bubble, so I was just kind of putting my head all around that.
Yeah, I mean, there are conversations we are having all the time about trying to understand the complex network that is the grant, the grant opportunities, so, yeah, well, I mean, this is just the implementation project, the build out analysis that I'm gonna walk you through is just one small piece of a whole bunch of ideas and conversations that are being had, and you know, looking at grant opportunities and opportunities for best management practices on farms is absolutely up there at the top of
Awesome.
of the list.
I have more questions later then.
Well, I just have one comment, I think. Maybe you're all gonna hate me when I say this, but I mean, I was on the zoning commission, and one of the things that came up with protecting the watershed is. It just came to me when you said that the landowner would provide, you know, the costs match. It's like, the question was, why are we doing it for Ithaca? Like, why would we be spending our money to protect Ithaca's water? Because everybody out here has a well, you know, we don't have.
Yes, so, and then there's, I think at the beginning, that is a presumption that people walk into, is that the water user is often asking municipalities outside of
Right.
their area to do this. But as we got into it, really, when you see some of the recommendations, all of those recommendations, if they were in place, they would reduce your flooding impacts, they'd reduce erosion, you know, they'd increase your climate resilience for some of these, as the storms get bigger. So there are mutual benefits. It won't be the same benefit, you know, just like if the homeowner doesn't have their backyard erode, they'll be happy. And that isn't so important to me. I mean, I care about their yard, but not the same way they do. But we wouldn't have that in our reservoir also. So we're finding a lot of that mutual benefit. And then there's also, if you're doing like a larger project, maybe like ditching stormwater management, we could apply as a multi-municipality grant and get a bigger project done. We have in fact shared equipment before on the two Barilli projects that were done years ago up here in the city, that provided the excavator and the operator for a couple of weeks on that. So there's cost saving opportunities as well.
Well, I mean, I'll just add in relationship to that throughout our zoning process and more recently, a new subdivision law, protection of the watershed has really been utmost on our mind. So
I think it's amazing.
the cost situation might be an issue, but also we're extremely dedicated, I think, as a town government
So I'm
to trying to protect that resource.
Yeah.
interested in their comments, because
Yeah.
we did work hard.
I know, yeah, no.
Yeah, Cleveland Line has been ahead of everyone in this watershed for as long as I've been here, since 1997. So doesn't go back that long, but you guys are the leaders out there on a lot of environmental things.
And I mean, just one thing that maybe you mentioned it previously, but not in direct response to the question, is that, you know, I think the city in a way is, you're sort of putting your money where your mouth is, and that you are taking some of the budget and putting it towards match for projects, you know, in other municipalities that are in the watershed. So that, you know, that's helping to offset that, partially or completely, that match that might be a barrier.
Ready for a new one?
Yes, yes, so that wraps up, that's the package, we wrap it all up in a bow, and, the City of Ithaca's plan, DWSB two was adopted in November 2022. So next steps, implementation, and this is one of the projects, the build out analysis. As I said, it was a small study that was funded, entirely by, the Great Lakes Basin Small Grants Program. I'm not sure if any of you have had a chance to look at the report. I think Mark, you might have looked at it, but if you haven't seen it, I'll happy to circulate it after tonight. There are 3 chapters up front that really set the stage in terms of assessing available water quality data for the watershed, looking at different models that, software platforms that might be available to do some modeling, keeping in mind this is a small study and doesn't have the scope or fee to do, extensive modeling from scratch. So looking at how could we do some modeling to see what impacts future development might have. So those are the first 3 chapters, and then the next section, one was done for each of the municipalities. So Caroline has sort of a standalone section that is related to specifically to your zoning and your findings.
So you were waiting for us to finish your analysis, is that right? For us to adopt the zoning?
It was interesting because when we first started out, I wasn't sure, because we based the build out on zoning, and without that, we weren't sure what to base it on, but time worked out. So,
Oops, did it again.
so this slide is kind of important in that a lot of people don't necessarily know what a build out analysis is. So I just want to take a minute to make sure you know what it is that I'm talking about when I say build out analysis. So, a lot of people are familiar with a build out analysis in terms of traffic or transportation. So if you say, if you have a community or municipality or a corridor that wants to look at doing a transportation build out analysis, that's looking at what does the full development of this area look like in the future, and what does that mean for traffic? And how can we potentially mitigate that or plan for it from day one? This is taking a similar concept, so looking at potential future development scenarios and saying, what does that do to stormwater quality? What does that do to impacts of water quality in the watershed? So that's what a build out analysis is. This was a fairly novel approach. It was listed as one of the project idea in the state's framework, but it wasn't really, there wasn't really steps on what to do. So we sort of created the approach and have had fun along the way trying to figure out, how to do it, and have had, as Rocky said, tons of conversations coming out of it. So this just here is kind of giving you an idea. It's hard to see, but there's the 4 different transportation corridors in the 4 different municipalities. So I wanted to include each municipality in the conversation. And I have a better visual of that on a future slide. So these were the goals. This is straight out of the grant application. So most importantly, probably is that number 1, growing that understanding, and not only the understanding of the relationship between land use and pollutant loads, but growing the sort of the knowledge share and communication and the relationships. And then, the rest are pretty straightforward. We want to identify the areas where development might occur and explore what impacts that might have on pollutant loading. And then at the end of the day, we wanted to be able to recommend land use planning tools that could be used so that decisions are being made with the City of Ithaca's drinking water supply in mind. So the next, or sort of the first step in the study, when we get right down to the corridor, is looking at defining the study area first, and then looking at what are our existing conditions. So you can see on this slide, we've got, portion of Slaterville Road, and this is Danby. Okay, this is not.
Where's,
This,
okay, I'm trying to see something.
Isn't that 79?
this,
Where's 79?
The pink road in the middle?
Pink road in the middle.
Here,
Then that's us then.
the town hall is here.
okay, sorry, this is just not labeled correct, I was just looking down here.
Oh,
And I think we've got an error down there, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Boyceville.
just.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
yeah, Boyceville's that,
Yeah, we wouldn't want
The
to.
ledge is
Spaghetti
taking
there.
up a lot of room there. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yes.
see,
I was
Boyceville,
spaghetti.
Boyceville's right. This is Boyceville, this is Boyceville, right? Here.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
I was looking at the wrong
Yeah.
thing, okay.
Okay.
So you can, if you can see the parcels that are darker in black, those are the parcels that were included in the study. So it really is looking at along Centerville Road and really lots that have frontage, that are, seen to be more, appropriate for future development is what was included in the study area. Couple of things on the existing conditions, we wanted to take a look at steep slopes, where development may or may not occur because of steep slopes, which really isn't, there really aren't many in this area. And then we wanted to look at, streams and wetlands and other environmentally sensitive areas, so those are all mapped. And then, obviously here it shows you kind of today's picture in terms of density, which is, a corridor of fairly low density along the transportation corridor, and a mix of cultivated crops and forest outside of there predominantly. If we move forward to the next slide, the next step, and okay, so this, and we don't have to, I'm not gonna go through everything in this table here, but this was just to show you that, the next step is to look at, okay, if the corridor was built out, or the study area was built out to its maximum allowable based on the current zoning, what does that look like? And what does that look like in terms of, development density and ultimately impervious area? And so we we scrutinized the zoning and in terms of, what uses are permitted by right and what uses might be permitted by site plan review. I think if you scroll down I can zoom out on the slide, we looked at, what's the minimum average lot size, and the maximum coverage allowable, to develop a map that shows what that development pressure or development density might look like in the future if the corridor was fully built out. So Mark, if you can skip to the next slide, there's it shows you what that might look like under a couple of build out scenarios. So we have, we wanted to run two scenarios for the build out. We wanted to run, what does that build out look like if we assume that our environmentally sensitive areas are protected? So our steep slopes are protected, wetlands, water bodies, and the riparian overlay district. And we wanted, and assuming that they're fully protected.
So, I'm sorry, 2A is with the zoning, the current zoning, and 2B is without anything?
No, they're both based on the zoning.
Okay.
Yeah, both based on the zoning, but one is taking a look at, if we assume that all of our environmental resources or environmentally sensitive areas or steep slopes are protected, meaning they're not gonna be developed, then what does that look like? And so that, that assumes that, there's no construction within the, there's no development within the, riparian overlay
Okay, so
district.
just I guess I got confused because we have the riparian overlay zone. And you're saying that's in both in 2B and 2A, or it's only in 2A?
It's only in 2A. It's
Okay,
only in 2A,
So it's-
yes, yeah. And this is
Wait, which one's
probably
2A? Is that to the left or to the?
2A
Green.
here.
Oh, okay,
So you can see just in this mapping that there's,
Counterintuitive.
yeah.
but, sorry, but, so I'll start here with the photo that you can see, like, the areas that are darker, the darker the area, the higher the development density. So the more impervious that you would find in that area. And so sort of a high, and the lighter the pink, the lower
Those,
the.
the two figures look really similar to me.
Yeah,
So they will be exactly the same with the exception of, in this scenario, we're assuming there's no development within water bodies, wetlands, steep slopes, or the riparian overlay district.
so it's like it's the riparian zone put on top of it, basically, that's what think it looks like to me.
Right, right. And that's just looking at,
Yeah,
and
you
it's
can see
it's
this
actually
green.
less relevant probably for Caroline and in some others. I mean, we were in Danby last night, we were talking through this, and Danby has a lot of steep slopes in their watershed area. And they don't have steep slopes law, so they're not currently protected. And so in that example, the findings are showing the difference of what are the findings showing, what's the pollutant load? If you protect your steep slopes from development, i.e. don't allow it there or fire controls, and what does it look like if you don't protect them? In Caroline, it's really, the difference is not that significant because you know, where you have regulated, DEC streams or wetlands, we can assume that there's gonna be no development there. Your riparian overlay district is fairly robust, we can assume in most cases, there's not going to be development there. And there's not, as I said, there's not a lot of steep slopes.
No, not
So
in
in
that
this
section, yeah.
situation, they will be very, very similar, yes. So I think that the most realistic full build-out scenario is gonna be your scenario 2A. That is, you have a full build-out of low to medium residential, and you've got protection of your waterways and riparian overlay districts there.
The pink, a lighter shade, when you say full build out, you're saying that's like a parking lot, the whole pink area, or you're saying there's 20 houses in there?
Yeah,
A
yeah.
Walmart in
Not
there.
a parking lot.
Okay.
20 houses, is
Okay.
more like, so if you get a chance to go to the report, and there's a legend there that
Okay.
shows you what the different pinks mean. The darker the pink, the higher the density, but we're talking about high density residential. So there's, we assumed that the most permitted by right, you can have subdivisions, and the most likely use of land is going to be likely subdivision, a residential subdivision, as opposed to some of the other use, higher intensity uses. So that is what we based the study on, was if you can just kind of picture someone goes in cars and carves out every single parcel to the maximum they can subdivide it. And then puts residential structures.
Based on the current zoning.
Based on the current
Okay.
zoning. Yes, yes.
So what area is that dark pink area to the left? Like what is that?
If you
What part is that?
go back to the existing.
This over here,
Yeah,
that's Thomas Road and Lounsbury Road, right?
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
well, what's the stuff to the,
I think, is there?
To the other
this is
side.
left out because I think there's a cemetery here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so
Um,
that's,
so
garage.
so the wetlands is Thomas Road at the top left.
yeah.
okay,
So we excluded that, assuming no one's gonna develop on
and then,
cemetery.
so then the light pink to the right, what's that? What's that boundary? Then, I mean,
What's this parcel?
no, all the way to the other, to the right.
The big farmland, probably, farmland
What,
parcels.
but what road is that?
The one in the middle is 79.
I know that,
Yeah,
but to
okay.
the right,
To the road on the right, that's
Yeah.
Midline Road and
So,
Creamery.
okay, so this is counterintuitive to me because that's like
Yeah.
switched.
Yeah.
It's like flipped.
It's just-
Okay, that's my confusion.
It's reduced also,
It's what?
reduced.
The map is flipped.
Yeah, because,
How's,
well, midline, if Tom,
Nothing, right?
It should
No, it's
be
correct.
flipped.
it's correct.
South and south.
Midline goes
Midland on
up
top,
and Creamery goes down from
so still
but
down.
from
if
Slater.
this is,
There's the Charles Wolf Cemetery block right
if this is Thomas,
Mm-hmm.
then what's this?
This is Slater, the town hall's right there. This is
Okay.
Midline, that's Creamery.
Real life.
I guess I would think that it would be the other way, that this would be Thomas, and over this way would be,
This is 79 going
Yeah.
this way. And then Thomas Road goes this way
yeah,
and
That's the big
Lounsbury
beaver
Road,
pond, right.
Lounsbury goes that way.
yeah.
And
And
it's
that-
all
this
of
is
it in
Midland?
between.
Yeah. This is Creamery down here to the south.
Okay, I'm still not visualizing, I can't express why I think
Terry
it's
lives right over there.
left, but I guess east, west, it seems, is flipped,
What's that?
east and west seems.
Oh, yeah, so,
No.
yeah, so you'd have to take it
Yeah,
and do it that way, if you're,
yeah.
yeah, so
Okay,
we're,
that's what's.
yeah, that's what's confusing you. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes,
Oh, like if we were like, yeah, but it's like,
So it's,
Yeah.
that way is Ithaca, but that way is not Ithaca, cause
right, if she's
That
right,
is not-
out here,
yes.
that way is. Ithaca,
that's what she's
so-
doing, she's
That's-
looking at the road
that's
out
what-
there.
Yeah,
she's
yeah,
like looking at like
Oh,
the map in a book.
Related to where we are.
With
Yeah,
east and west,
exactly.
you know,
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
where we're
But
sitting.
even,
It's easy to do.
even,
Okay,
Yep.
okay, never mind.
We're on the table.
if it were on the, if the map on the table.
Yeah, you have to flip it around.
Yeah.
I got you, I got you.
We can move on, I want to.
Yes, please.
Time for the recommendations, which is, I think, the main crux of the study, so if we can move to the next slide.
Are you ready for the next one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so once we, we did all that sort of mapping to look at the study area, look at the potential build out and what that might look like. Then we used a couple of different modeling methods to run it through a model to look at what the different pollutant loads might be under the scenario. So we used Model My Watershed, which is a publicly available web-based tool where you can, it has already the soils data and the land cover data in the program. You can update, you can adapt the rainfall, so we pulled in local rainfall and temperature data to run it. And you can play around, it's essentially really kind of a fun tool for people that are into modeling, but you can play around with the land cover, so you can change the percentage of land.
And then you can see like the change the rain and the.
You can,
That's
yeah, you
yeah.
can see the change and then we also wanted to supplement, so that's for nitrogen, phosphorus and sediment, and then we also wanted to supplement that data with some other pollutant parameters that may be of interest at the water treatment plant. So for that, we just used a simple calculation based on some published coefficients to estimate those. So I'm not gonna go into the details of the modeling. It's if you want some nice light reading before bed, it's all in the front end of the report. But we presented a number of findings in the report that show, so just sort of to look at your existing conditions here, and I apologize, the colors are actually, the legends on these two pie charts are not the same, so it's a little confusing, but if we just look at this land cover in the middle for the existing conditions, you can see that the big chunk of the pie is agriculture, pasture, and then to a lesser extent, forest and rural open. Very small slivers of medium density residential and low density residential. So when we looked at the conversion of all of that to low to medium density residential based on zoning, we actually come out showing that phosphorus and nitrogen is reduced And so that's, that is, predominantly coming from the fact that the model is, looking at agricultural use as, a high output of nutrients in runoff. And so it sort of wasn't, what we were anticipating to see, but, it also is important for me to note that, the model has the ability to input best management practices that may be used on agricultural parcels, so that's not included at this moment. There's, there's no, and we sort of were talking about, and it's in the report that would be an interesting thing to look at if we could look at, more of a parcel, take a closer look at parcels and work with soil and water to understand what best management practices are being used on some of the agricultural parcels, to understand what impact that might have. The other thing to note is, I think the other thing to note on this slide is the sediment loading, which is the most critical, or seen as the most critical pollutant concern for the reservoir, and the impact that the full build out has on sediment loading. And you, in the report, I don't want to get into the details of this today, with the report, it talks about the percentage change and in the various scenarios, and it kind of steps through, all the different pollutants, not just these three, but the heavy metals and the CRD and BOD as well. Without getting too deep into this, is there any questions before I go on to the recommendations?
It's interesting, pretty
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah,
I just note the sediment loading is, it's increased by both for either kind of build out
yes,
significantly.
yeah, significantly, and to a slightly lesser extent with the preservation. And that does kind of go back to the fact that, those two scenarios, as you saw up front, are very similar, even for the town of Caroline.
Mhm.
So if we get into the recommendations, I think, this slide is, just talking about the fact that, we took all of that upfront work and we wanted to sort of boil it down to, what is it telling us, where might new development occur? It's indicating that. What development density might occur based on the existing zoning, which pollutants might be produced and by how much. So if we can skip to the next slide. This was the next step, once we kind of had run through the model, and that was actually a fairly extensive effort just to kind of get us to this point of the recommendations. But in order to really kind of assess, well, what is that, that's all great, that's all really interesting, we all like to scrutinize data, but what can we do, what does it mean? We thought the next logical step would be to take a deeper dive into the code and look at, what existing land use controls or local laws are on the books that already are protecting stormwater. And so you can see the list there of the code review that we did. And if you skip to the next slide, it gives you an idea of, kind of just wanted to include this slide to show you kind of that there was sort of three main recommendations that were carried across all of the municipalities, and then some others that were, more specific to one or multiple of the municipalities. So obviously, we're in Caroline tonight, and we're going to talk about those 5 recommendations that came out of our code review.
We will note that we did a comprehensive plan update 2 years ago.
Right, which is why it's
It's not
not
recommended.
boxed.
Oh, I see, the recommended. Oh, I
Yeah.
see.
We've already, but I'm confused because we have riparian buffer regulations and we have steep slope
You guys are
regulations.
paying attention, yes,
I'm
you do.
sorry.
So this is not to say that you
That's what I
need
read
them,
through.
Uh-huh.
but that there may be some recommendations of how they could be tweaked,
Oh,
I
okay.
guess, to increase the protections. Yeah, so in some instances, you're correct, and this is just kind of a high level snapshot. But in some instances, there would be municipalities that don't have a riparian buffer regulation at all. And so that recommendation would look different than yours, which is more, gets into some of the nuts and bolts of what's there. So if we
Great.
move on to the next slide.
Okay.
And so I'm actually an engineer, and our community planner who was with us last night is not available tonight. So I'm gonna do my very best with presenting these recommendations. If you have some really sticky questions for me, I may have to get back to you, but one more. Yep. The first recommendation was in terms of the stream corridor overlay, which you do have currently. And I'm assuming there's probably a lot of discussion when this overlay was initially.
Oh,
Is that an understatement?
yeah.
So, this may all be stuff that you're already aware of, fairly unique scenario here in Caroline, but when we looked at the build out and we looked at modeling it, we had to make some assumptions because we couldn't go parcel by parcel and look at where is the development gonna be and how much percentage, didn't really have the scope to do that. So we had to make some overarching assumptions, but when we take a look at the existing stream corridor overlay, we noticed that for up to 10% of the parcel's land area, it's within the overlay, can be developed. Up to 10% of the land area within the overlay can be developed. So, and then it jumps up to 25% when there's more than 75% of the area in the overlay. So just something that we noticed there is that it seemed to be there was a lot of very large parcels in this corridor, some 50 acres and greater, that you would intuitively think that there's no reason to disturb even 0% of the riparian buffer when you have that much acreage that you're working with. And that it would be nice to see, some additional tiering and kind of not going just from your 10% up to your 25%. But having, starting at 0% where you're dealing with a very large parcel. So that's where, example up above is, and this is from the report, but an example up above is, maybe 0% of the overlay if you have a greater than 5 acres that you're dealing with, as an example. And then you sort of would work up from there. If you have less than 5 acres, then you would say 0% of the riparian buffer could be developed if less than 25% of the parcel is covered, and kind of work your way up to what you have here, which is 25%. So I don't know if this kind of tiering was discussed, when this was developed, but it's just a way to sort of provide clarity so that, if you did have a scenario where a developer comes in with a very huge parcel, but they, for whatever reason, want to put something in the riparian buffer, and it really is completely unnecessary, we have so much land that it sort of just precludes that, or, and then, obviously, the other one is requiring hard to, kind of maybe an overstep or incentivizing planting within the stream setback. So if you have a developer coming in and they're, building within proximity of the stream corridor overlay, but they're not in it, but maybe there's some way to encourage adding more plantings to the overlay. So those are the main recommendations there. The lot coverage regulations. This one is interesting compared to what we see in a lot of zoning in mainly in the hamlet. I guess 50% lot coverage in the hamlet is pretty high. And actually, higher than what you typically have in the hamlet at this point with the development that's already there. Commercial, 60% commercial, that doesn't seem to align with what we typically see in the ag rural districts, 20%, not so much. So it's probably the hamlet that we were sort of surprised to see a lot coverage percentage that high. And so.
And I'll just say that was in relationship to the average size of lots in
Right.
those hamlets. So they have very larger acreage. So that was the rationale.
Right.
They have a smaller acreage.
Yeah.
They have larger
Yeah.
acreage.
So they have, so the house might take up
More.
a lot more of the lot because the lot's tiny. It's like, it's not an acre, it's not 3 acres, it's
Right,
half an acre, a quarter acre. It's a village,
yes.
so.
And so maybe then that is where your commercial might be, or our recommendations here, maybe are maybe more relevant to commercial if, the hamlet are all very tiny parcels, but I think the recommendation there was potentially to decrease the maximum lot coverages or supplement with a maximum impervious cover. So, maybe you do allow 50% and or 60% in your commercial, but maybe you have a maximum impervious. So you're really promoting, your green infrastructure or forest, if it's commercial, your forest pavements or those sorts of green infrastructure practices that maybe allow the full lot coverage, but try and hit a lower impervious area. So, this is then a new, recommendation for a new district, I guess. This is, sort of like, maybe this is the gold standard. This is the overlay that addresses, the city because, drinking water source, critical source water area. And maybe could include some of the recommendations that, maybe you would want to include across, the whole municipality, but would be more important for this smaller area, that's within that critical source water area. So in this, instance, we're sort of talking about the stream corridor overlay and how it prohibits certain land uses within the distance of the stream, but then not, obviously not over the entire critical source water area. And so the recommendation there might be to create a new overlay district that would not necessarily have the same, obviously not having the same restrictions that you would have in the stream or riparian buffer overlay, but something, that maybe would limit the density of development a little more just within this critical source water area. Or it might prohibit uses, such as gas stations or bulk storage or mining, could prohibit certain land uses just within that critical source water area. And we've talked, yes, in the plan management team about, how great it would be to have a consistent one across all of these.
It'd be interesting because I think that my understanding of our new zoning law is that it does a lot of these things already. So it would have been interesting to have had a conversation with you guys in relationship to making the recommendations.
It seemed at the time that it might not actually be helpful to your conversation if the city of Ithaca.
Well, that's always the case. You're absolutely right.
No, we said it's not.
It's a living document, so, we'll be, we'll make changes as we feel they're needed going, so this is good to have.
Yeah, I mean, the mentioning of planting trees is something that our ag committee, people in our ag committee have talked about, and so that directly ties to
Mhm.
things that haven't been talked about during the zoning, but now can be since we have an ag committee. And this is backing up that kind of conversation.
And so now all of a sudden, the city of Ithaca might invest staff or funding in an effort because it's in line with our DWSP2 plan. So there's new opportunities.
Interesting.
I think it is important to know too, or to keep in mind for any projects that you're trying to get off the ground or any grants that you're looking to go for. Applications will be more competitive if you can point to an adopted plan that is in your project is in line with the goals of the plan. So, you know, if you are working on grants that are having anything to do with water quality of 6 Mile Creek, you point to this plan in your grant application and it's gonna give you, you know, extra points for that.
Fantastic.
So the next one is conservation subdivision regulations. So in the existing regulations, this is required in the ag rural district. And it aims to conserve primary conservation areas. And then it goes on to define what those primary conservation areas are. And you can see the long list there of primary conservation areas. And so I guess a recommendation would be to also keep in mind the City of Ithaca's drinking water critical source area when you're thinking, you know, ultimately potentially, you know, an opportunity to change the definition to include the critical source water area and or as you know, if there's a project in front of the planning board or ZBA or you know, that area is mapped and considered and then also to expand the conservation subdivision to major subdivisions that are outside of the agricultural district. So those were the three sort of tweaks that were proposed to the conservation subdivision. I think this is the last one, but there has been a lot of thought about solar, you know, solar being, you know, the rural environment here and in the other areas that are in the watershed, that they would be ideal locations for solar developers to approach. So obviously conversion of the land from either agriculture or forested areas, which each come with their own set of issues and concerns. And so as a separate part of an implementation project that we did with the funding that was provided for implementations, we actually developed a model solar local law that looks at adding increased protections for stormwater runoff. So a lot of municipalities, and I expect, and it's been a while since I looked at Caroline's solar law, but I expect it's the same as they were originally based off NYSERDA's model local law with some, you know, adaptations. And not a lot of focus on stormwater, you know, sort of with the expectation that, you know, the DEC is handling that and they have their guidance and they have their requirements. But we have noticed over the years of solar development that there could be a stronger focus on both temporary and long-term impacts to stormwater runoffs in terms of erosion or changes to peak flows. And so we, both during construction and following construction. So we have come up with, and I think you have it in your package tonight, so I won't go into it in detail, but it's, yes, that's the one. It's a sort of a long list of clauses that could be added to a solar law in order to strengthen rotection for stormwater runoff. And so there's everything in there from just looking at, you know, requiring rolled erosion control products on slopes greater than 15%, or you know, reinforced turf matting on slopes greater than 25%. Those sort of more design technical issues, all the way down over to, you know, requiring the developer to fund construction inspections, which it was, most municipalities that I work in anyway are really trying to do that, but if it's in a code, then there can be sort of no, there's really no pushback from the developer about doing that, so. I won't go through that with you, that's this whole other presentation, but, if you have any questions on that, happy to answer them, and, over time, if you're looking to
Great.
update your solar.
I just printed it out, no, I'll share it digitally too. I'll send you.
I mean, it seems that we should share this with the planning boards.
Yeah, I sent it to Bill.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Okay,
so,
because they're updating the stormwater law is on their agenda as well.
oh, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, after they do the,
Okay,
Stormwater management law?
yeah,
Or-
it's on their agenda for after
they're working on some other doozy.
they're working a couple of other,
Caroline and MS4,
what?
Caroline and MS4,
What does that mean?
The,
municipal.
yes, it is,
Yes.
an MS4, yeah.
And again,
What is it?
instead of the 1 acre limit. they
Municipal
have-
separate stormwater systems, something like that.
Okay.
Ahead of the curve, yeah.
And I know 3 of the municipalities are MS4s and 1 isn't, and I couldn't remember which one.
I think that's Danby is not.
What does that mean?
Caroline is because of Brooktondale, it's, the density of development in Brooktondale near 6 Mile Creek.
That just means that there's regulations from the state as
From the
to what
DEC.
you need to do for your stormwater, there's 2 stormwater laws that you have to have on the books, and there's a whole program you have to.
I think it's worth noting that some of those items on the stormwater law, also offset costs and liabilities for the towns. So, the things you really might wanna have, regardless of stormwater. Like the one where you ask the developer you require the developer to fund extra monitoring or inspections.
Yeah,
That's for the solar energy systems
Yeah.
law, right? That's-
Yeah, I was just stepping back to that, yeah.
Great.
So, but you talked a little bit about impervious surfaces, but not directly say about roads or paving the shoulders of the roads to make them like twice as wide with impervious surfaces, or the ditching or the amount of salt and other solvents used on. Do you look at those things when you're talking about this?
not in the build out analysis, so it's more looking at, at really outside of the public right away, it's looking at development on private parcels.
So the impervious surfaces within a development though would,
Oh,
we're
yes,
taking into
yes,
consideration.
that would be, yes, that would be included.
Great, well, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Really appreciate all the work and coming out to present it to us tonight.
So our plan management team needs, sort of as needed, to keep projects moving forward. And then also to look to the future about what else we could be doing. Like I said, we have Kristen Hitchcock from Town Caroline, but also feel free to reach out directly to me or anyone else if there's something you want to discuss, like something the Ag Committee is doing, that we might be able to partner on. So, yeah,
Great,
Mark knows where to find me.
yes, and thank you for that, and so I'm not gonna open this discussion because it would be a whole nother agenda item, but we did put the Banks Road project out for bid, and so I'll get hold of you about to discuss that, so
Okay, great.
we'd like to get that done next year, so.
That's wonderful. Thank
Yeah,
you.
no.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Nice
Thank you.
to come back out here.
What's that?
It's been so long since I've come to the meeting. during-
Yeah, and I also meant to mention that Roxy has been a recent days, very infrequent, but I think in past days, a very frequent member of our watershed committee,
Yeah.
so.
For probably over a decade, I've
Yeah.
done most of them, but yeah.
Great.
But they conflict with our monitoring partnership meeting, or I'd come to more.
What's that?
They conflict with the monitoring partnership meeting for the Water Resources Council.
Oh,
The bummer. Anyway,
yeah, oh, well,
thank you for having
Thanks,
us.
thanks so much.
Yep.
maybe we'll just tweak our meeting, so, okay. Good night.
Bye.
I have to escape.
No, it's gotten late already.
Okay.
I know, it's gotten, yeah, there's that.
Good trap.
20-minute presentation was an hour.
It's an hour.
Yeah, so it was a lot of material. Let's see. I
Okay.
gotta make sure I have the Zoom back up here.
I
Okay.
see here that that presentation is available online. I see like there's a link in this printout almost.
We could make it available. We probably should.
It does look like it says here.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. It should be there.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, yeah, it'll be, if you go to the minutes page on the, you find the agenda for this meeting and the link's there.
Oh, fine, no worries. Thank you.
All right, well, I guess we will move on. So let's see, did I actually forget to print that? No, I did. So now we'll move on to the reports, and I will give my report very briefly.
Okay.
So I did reply to the county about their 239 review of our subdivision law. And let them know that we adopted it and incorporated their editorial recommendations. The streetlights that are damaged are now scheduled to be repaired on October 21st. That's 2 different streetlights. The broadband MIP project continues at full pace with our Dryden team, and I've been working with one person from Hunt Engineering on the Slaterville point of presence. And so that point of presence, do not ask me to explain the intricacies of how this all works. But we're purchasing bandwidth, we're purchasing fiber capacity from Frontier at that substation at the bottom of Buffalo Road. And so that'll be part of the program. So we do need an enclosure with climate control and access. So after I did meet with them, we met with Slaterville for possible use of a closet at the fire hall. And they were great. We talked about their concerns. So they do have some concerns that they would want addressed, but they would entertain using a space there. We looked at a space in the small conference room that would work. That little sort of area that's accessed by this door over here would actually work. And then Velvet's unoccupied office over in the town offices would work. I replied after fermenting on this for a couple days that I thought it would be best for us to install an external shed hut or something like that. For a number of reasons, our space is limited, so I hate to, if it's not necessary, I hate to use space here or there. And then, and having a space across the street with Slaterville Fire Hall is complicated. Just because it involves another entity, they have security concerns which are legitimate. And the other thing is we've talked about having backup generation here at the town offices, and that can be an aspect of the project here. That will probably be covered by the grant. I think it will be. So I think it's a great opportunity to do that here. And this Rich, Frankie sent me, apparently you can just, there are these used sheds and you can just buy them. So, and
Like an insulated thing that can have a little heater or cooler in it.
Yeah,
like a mini split or
So
something.
you know about this, yeah, they have,
I'm just guessing, but you said conditions, so,
Yeah.
or,
yeah.
yeah.
I know we have a propane tank for the generator.
I mean, yeah, so that's as far as the generator, I would welcome input on that. I do, after discussions, I think it would be best not to use natural gas. Just because we kind of like to wean ourselves off of it here. Also, if there's a widespread emergency, the gas supplier will shut off gas to an area because of the hazard posed by it. So it has that downside. And propane could work, and it's just used, but yeah. I would be interested if battery backup is feasible. I just don't know if it is.
It is just very expensive.
Yeah, so that, it'd be interesting to know what
What
the
the
cost
cost is and the
difference
difference.
is, so. Anyway, to be continued, that's something we're gonna need to grapple with, to move
I think it's a
forward.
good idea because then it's always under our control. I mean, if it's
Yeah.
in somebody else's space,
Right,
then down the road, it could be a problem.
right. It makes administration simpler,
Yeah.
for
I
sure.
think it makes sense.
And do you want to just add on a quick summary of the bond discussion also for everybody?
Of the bonding, well, frankly, yeah, so. I did invite Kate and Tim to the meeting with the bonding person and, so we had a discussion, today, Jeff actually emailed and asked a number of questions that, sent me into panic mode, and so I emailed him back with the information I had, and, so, we may need to, I don't know if we are responsible, the town board is responsible for conducting seeker. We may need to do that. But I didn't hear back from anybody today, so I'm gonna call people tomorrow.
Right, seeker.
I thought we were gonna do that.
Seeker for,
We said we did.
Well, he's wondering if Dryden does it if we do it.
Ah,
yeah, I just have to find out what our responsibility is
Seeker for
for the broadband project. But I had
the
a,
entire project. Yeah, project.
well, just to make sure that the Caroline portion is covered under seeker.
Okay,
So I know that Hunt Engineering was doing seeker
mhm.
for Dryden Fiber, and I assumed that that included Caroline.
okay,
Because, so I just have to make sure, and if
I see.
not, then I will engage with Hunt to make sure it happens as soon as possible.
Yeah.
If that's, or if we need to do it, that's fine.
I think I remember that they did it for Caroline. We talked, that was talked about at a meeting.
Okay,
At one
well,
of the meetings, but yeah,
I-
make sure.
I copied Dave Makar, so,
Okay.
Mhm.
But if
So
I
that
remember
would-
correctly, they said that was.
I think
taken care
Jeff
of,
is
so-
just trying to get up to speed and get the foundation under us. Send questions about easements and attorney opinions and things like this that are
Dotting all the i's.
very wonky. Yes, thanks for the state, so. More on that soon. But I did ask the question when we met with them about whether we expected any budgetary impacts next year for this RAM, this revenue anticipation note that we'll have to take out. And what I understood him to say is that the interest payments could be worked into the payment schedule for the bond. I don't think so, so I'll follow up with him to be sure, but I think we don't have to worry about that. Then the watershed committee met, they're planning for an annual watershed education event next spring. Penny Boynton is very active now with the committee and I'm excited about it. So we've been wanting to do something like that. Possibly in association with Cleanup Week. I forwarded you the highway barring plans that did come from Labella in late August, actually. And so we need to consider that. I chatted with Tim a little bit about it today. And I think we're both in agreement that it probably makes sense to. Well, yeah, so, we'll need to get back to Labella before we move forward on it. But we probably have some feedback for this plan, some tweaks before the next design phase that then would be put out for bid, so.
And that probably then will take us into 2025.
But I am-
Before we make any commitments.
It does cross my mind right now as I'm talking about it, that we may well want to budget for this next phase of the design phase with Labella in 2025.
Do we have extant funds in the highway building reserve fund
Yes,
that we could just use for that?
yeah, we could,
So I think we don't need to worry about it then,
okay,
because that's what it's for.
yeah.
Is that Quonset hut, empty now? They got everything out of it? It just
I don't know.
looked dangerous and about ready to cave in, and I was just.
This is not in my bailiwick, you'll have to
Okay.
ask somebody else.
All right,
That's obviously glad.
I
okay.
do have a quick question, since I wasn't involved in the early stages of this plan, which I did briefly look at. Has the highway department staff or employees been involved in the planning process at
Yes.
some point, and do they feel like they need to be involved in this next phase, or how does that for 2025?
Bob has run all of the different scenarios by the highway guys, they talk about it,
Okay.
and we get feedback, so.
They're very, I mean, Bob is very involved in this.
Mhm.
They've been doing a lot of building over there. You could stop by, I'm sure
For
they'll
what?
show you around.
You've probably seen it, the wings on that one building, but yeah. Alrighty,
That was originally, just quick background. The first proposal that we had gotten for this entire project was massive. And
Really expensive.
it included a complete tear down, massive rebuilding, hyper expensive.
Yeah.
So the highway guys put their heads together and offered to expand this one outbuilding in order to transfer storage for a building that's falling apart. And as part of that project, then we asked the engineers to provide us with a much more reduced template,
basically,
which is where we are.
modify the existing,
Yeah,
could we modify the existing garage?
Mhm.
So that's what. Came up
and
with
everyone seems to be on board with it.
So,
Yep.
realizing all of this, and this is hound me, but I should share the original plans with you, so you have that background, so. I'll do that. If I can, with the massive document, I don't know, I may have to give it to you in print form or
That's fine.
something.
I'm coming in tomorrow morning to sign the
Okay.
check, so.
To check them out, okay, good. All right, and then I just, we don't have to deal with this now, but I do want to, I did go to the state site, I think I sent you guys an email about the cannabis and, so, yeah, I think we need to answer the question of if we're prepared to opt in now. If not, why not? If so, then I will I'll propose a local law, which would be very simple, repeal.
So is that something we can do at the agenda meeting, December?
Possibly, sure, if people are comfortable with that, I think,
Well, we can have the discussion at least.
yeah. Yeah, so let's have the discussion then, I think that's a good idea. I think what we want to look at is, are we comfortable with how our zoning treats these, which they are included in 3 different districts, so. Great. Okay, that's my report. And then, I'll move on. Jesse, do you have a report for us? Do you want to
Yeah.
speak to?
Yeah, I'll just run through the September revenues.
Okay,
I sold 10 hunting licenses, 47 dog license renewals. There was 1 dog impoundment, 12 building permit fees were issued, and 1 marriage license. So the total revenues for September was $3,560. And check number 341 in the amount of $2,540.62. That was the local shares, was submitted to Mark on October 1st.
great, thank
That's
you.
the clerk's report.
Great. And I'll mention, Jesse's been working pretty regularly and hard to support the code office and
Yeah,
materials there, so thank you for that. I met with Bob this morning about the budget item, so I have that information, and so he decided he had some things to tend to tonight, so he's not joining us. And we don't have the code officer or the county legislator here tonight, so I'm gonna reach out to Dan, because I just haven't talked to him in a long time.
Well,
Yeah. Missing him. So with that, I would like to move into the budget workshop. I'll share my screen. I did print landscape format. It didn't really make much difference, but maybe you can read it.
It's good.
But yeah, there's some copies. Everybody get a copy? Okay, great. And I need to make sure that
Restrooms right around the corner.
yes,
you had no?
Just the restroom.
Oh, okay.
we won't miss the budget.
Yeah. that's right.
Yeah.
What did I do here? Oh, no, so,
So what have you tweaked since last week?
okay, that's that. This all lined up. Okay. Okay. So to start with, so now the 2025 FICA cost of living is out there. And oh my goodness, what is going on here?
2.5%.
Oh, no. Okay. It just took a minute for it to switch to the right document. So the number is 2.5% for Social Security cost of living next year. I guess my proposal is to make that the COLA increase.
Yeah, I think that would be good.
So I did put that in. Then,
I'm sorry, what's the figure again?
what's that?
What is the proposed figure?
2.5%.
Okay.
Yeah.
But last time we were talking about 3%.
3%.
Right, but that was before
Okay, so you've changed it.
I've changed it.
Okay.
That's a change, right? So I'm not gonna go through everything. I'm just gonna go through changes
Okay.
tonight. And
So that has shifted the salaries and, okay.
so those will change. So the next change, so I'm not gonna go through each of those, just to say that those numbers will all change for the personnel lines. So I did go through and do that in this budget worksheet. And so that I'm just thinking of procedurally the best way to do this. Because I am gonna want to list it. Maybe what I'll do is just go through and verbally go through the changes. So now the budget line for the town board would be at 12,388. And then for the justices, 33,232. For the court clerk, 23,937. And then for the supervisor's salary, 25,391. For the bookkeeper, 26,181. For the town clerk, 47,911. For the deputy clerk, 5,527. For Ike. While I'm going through these, I will also, well, I better stay consistent here. For the highway superintendent, 75,828. For the highway clerical, 16,105.
Wait, is it on a different page?
Possibly. Yeah, that's A 5010.1.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, sorry, and then. So those, and then I increased the code enforcement line based on 35 hours per week.
Is that,
Yeah, that's a 3620.1. And so that came out to 56,338.
okay,
836.
Great. Did you have a question, Tim?
I'm just trying to find it.
Yeah, 56,338, A 3620.1.
Okay.
I went back up. So that's another change. For A 3620.4, which is the contractual line for the code office. I increased that from 7,000 to 12,000. Based on the cloud permit. Contract. Then moving down to the highway lines. The DA lines. The changes are DA 5110.4. I had it at 150. At Bob's urging, I put it back at 189,000.
okay, so this is under general repairs,
Correct.
okay,
Yeah. So that one will be 189,000. The contractual fuel, let's see, that was at 65,000, so we're changing that to 50,000. Did that based on last year's fuel costs. And let's see. So those are the budget line changes that I have. one question I had, I have not heard from the court. I did set their contractual line at 2,000. They had requested 14,700. I asked for a justification for the 2,000, didn't get that, so. I suppose it makes sense to leave it at 2,000. Seems modest and.
So you were saying they're asking for 14,000 or 1,400?
14,700,
And they didn't give a reason why?
not this year, no.
And the 2,000 is typical.
The 2,000 is fairly typical, let's see, actually it's expended in 2023 was 3,000. Expended through
What's the
8/30.
code? What's the code for that?
What's that?
What's the code we're looking at? Sorry,
A1110.4. Toward the top, it's an early
okay,
one.
I see, 2,000, there it is. But I don't know if we wanna get into it, but their amounts were higher than that in the past.
Yeah, I'm noticing that too.
That seems like a significant jump though,
Well, so
$10,000,
just what that,
it's $10,000 more than typical.
yeah, so just for the background, for last year, they were asking for monies for, file cabinets, new furniture,
So that's in the probably what's on their mind again,
probably,
and cameras, which is what they were
possibly,
applying for the grant
right,
to try to get cameras.
but we put cameras in,
And then the
so
door lock buzzer thing that they've been talking about.
probably, yeah.
Something in there.
Mhm.
Did we install the monitor for her yet? Or-
No, we haven't done that yet because I haven't sent the email yet, but I need to, but.
Okay. I guess my only question would be, so in the past, they have spent through August, 3,500,
Mhm.
that I just wonder if 2,000 is low, like maybe we want to do 3,000,
Yeah, I get that,
but
I just,
I don't know what they're spending it on, so.
right, so,
Are they required to send us like a budget or, I mean, does the DPW send?
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
here's
all
what
the
we spend
department-
our money,
okay, so nobody's required to,
okay,
they're not required to.
okay,
They did send the budget request, they sent the numbers. And last year they had items that they requested. So they did purchase 3 video monitors that are in the small conference room. 4 mounting hardware devices and a box of sound panels that are in the closet in there. So those were all things that they had requested. But we had told them we have monitors and we're ready to install a monitor in the clerk's office. We're still ready to do that, so. I guess, to your question, Michelle, I think, I will send them a message that we're, we need to do that and, so. And let them know that we'll schedule this when you're in the office and let us know.
So in other words, some of this stuff, this $3,000 is stuff that they bought that's
Right.
just sitting there.
Yeah.
Okay,
And that-
so I could see just leaving it at $2,000 and then we'll
And-
have to see some justification for an increase.
Yeah. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
And,
Makes sense.
okay, great. So I'll leave that one alone.
Yeah,
And we paid for the video monitors out of town contractual, not
okay,
out,
so,
not out of the justice. So the monitor that they will get,
Mhm.
we've already purchased.
yeah,
So, the other thing that I wanted to, so that is absolutely necessary that I talk to you about is fund balance and offsetting the levy with fund balance. It is, of course, it's on one of the, maybe the back sheet of your printout. Let's see. Yeah, it's that,
That's down for.
that table, so I did I went through today, so I have this column where I'm trying to project expenditures by the end of the year and figure out how much we'll have left over, so my calculations saying about 600,000. I still, so anyway. It looks like we'll have something left over at the end of the year. That's what the numbers say now. Then I went down to, so I'll try to, I walked you through this table before, right? So, and I've added some things in here that are more like, future liabilities. And I made a column for those, so let's see, this one is, yeah, so next year we'll owe $50,000 on, it'll be the 5th payment for that snowplow. But we'll also be purchasing a new snowplow. That's gonna cost $300,000. Now, we may not pay for it all at once, but I just messed up my spreadsheet. How did it do that? But I wanted to include that in our thinking. I thought that was.
So I don't see the $50,000.
It's because in my spreadsheet, it's embedded in,
So is it on the printout?
see the purple column,
Oh,
liabilities?
yeah,
The second number down is 350. That's 300 plus 50.
I see,
That's
okay,
where it is.
okay, got it.
And I did something here on the screen and it won't, messed it all up. Oh, good.
Just do the back space thing. Then revert.
I'll try to reinvent it. That worked. Okay, so I did that. This one I put in because for the project on this hall, we're committed to 50% cost share, which is $375,000. I didn't put it in here, but in addition to that, we have to have, it's a reimbursement grant. So we have to have a little more than that because we're gonna have to pay for stuff and then get paid back. So that's just something to keep in mind when we're looking at the final numbers. So considering all of these things, so let's say, this is super conservative because I stuck those liabilities in there, especially like that snowplow. If we do a 5-year installment payment, next year we'd be paying 60,000 and so on. So that would give us 240,000 but anyway, what my numbers are showing is that highway is getting extremely low in fund balance, partly because you'll see here for fund balance used, I used a lot of fund balance from highway.
For the rebuild?
For the money we would apply to reduce the tax levy.
Oh, okay.
That's what those two
Okay,
numbers,
okay.
that's those two numbers there. So perhaps it makes sense to shift that a little bit.
So highway would be. Fund balance would be 72,000. Am I reading that right, Mark?
It would be 72,000 if we paid out of pocket for $300,000 snowplow. But
Pretty low.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like, so I'll just do it. So if I just change these numbers, let's add 100,000 here. Oh, I see how I did that. That's the wrong number to change. I'll change down here. Okay, so I've shifted the use of fund balance, so now I'm using 100 more from A fund and 100 less from DA. So those should have changed. Yeah, they did.
So a fund trial balance or fund balance will end up being.
So then the A fund balance
262, is that right?
goes to 262.
100,000 difference
Yeah,
in both.
and the DA goes up to 173.
Okay,
And do you have a way of telling us what the percentage then is gonna be of the fund balance?
That's what overall, that's what these numbers are.
Okay,
wait, which numbers?
Although they haven't moved, have they?
No,
So how did I do that? No, they just haven't moved. Now they're moving. Isn't that
that's
weird?
weird.
Is that because I'm projecting it? That
maybe,
it's so slow?
Yeah,
So it makes sense that the 13 stays the same.
So one question you brought up, Tim, earlier is, does the fund balance help with the garage construction or the garage plan next year?
no, that's a different, so we have a separate fund for highway garage
Oh, right.
that we put away every
The
year.
DA doesn't.
Yeah,
Right, so it's not the fund balance, it's actually
it's a reserve.
saving, a savings that I think.
No,
savings
it's,
that-
Fund balance and savings.
Yeah.
What does DA stand for?
What?
What does DA stand for?
Just means highway funds.
Okay.
And A means general.
I'm not trying to be literal.
I meant, yeah, not literally what it stands for.
I don't know what it really stands for. I don't.
a highway,
Huh?
Some accountant made up.
a highway,
Yeah,
a
Yeah.
highway.
Yeah, so.
The
So
highway-
every year.
the
we're
highway-
Putting aside money. In this fund, understanding we're gonna build a highway barn. So what do we have something like, I don't know what it is now, but
I'm looking it up.
And we also put money aside for the buildings.
yeah, here. So that's what I was referring to.
So the highway barn has $367,000 in it right today. So, and then we have that line that we budget every year, so. So we budget like for that 60,000 every year, and if we don't use it by the end of the year, we put it in, we add it. So that's how we build it.
But someone brought up the concern, maybe it was you, Tim, that this is low. So why is that concern?
So what was low initially was the fund balance for highway
Okay.
just seemed really low to me.
Yeah.
So that's why we adjusted it.
But
So
it's
in other
not
words, if we
reserved.
had to, if we had a crisis and we had to pull funds out of the fund balance. For highway. What we had before was, we had just very little latitude, so we had about 75,000.
Except that, so this is a little bit, so. I was intentionally applying more fund balance from the DA fund than the A fund. For this reason. You can spend on any, as long as it's the same tax base, you can spend A fund funds on either A fund items or DA fund items. But you can't spend DA fund balance on A fund.
Well, that's smart.
So it's better to keep it in the A.
Yeah,
Yeah. we'll
because
do
it gives you more
yeah.
flexibility.
Go back, yeah.
So maybe I can go back.
I need these explanations.
Yeah,
You can go back then to the,
okay, so I kind of agree.
I have to say whatever you think is best at this point.
Okay. I mean, I don't like it when it was getting as low as that, I have to admit, so.
How would it go back up? What's the thing that funds that? The DA,
Build it back up, A fund.
how? Oh, but the DA fund, how do we build that back up? If it
Oh,
stays at 72. Where does the money come from? Do you have to wait till the next budget, the
Yeah,
2026 budget?
it just builds from leftover tax monies every year.
Okay,
So that's the purpose of this process of plowing fund balance from the,
plowing.
yeah, back in to reduce the tax levy. You're not keeping money. You don't want to do that. And that's
But
why,
if we have to break another truck,
yeah,
it comes from here.
yeah, it could, yeah. And so that's totally legit. That's great.
But it could come from the A.
But it can come from the A, which I didn't know.
Yeah, which
I
is
didn't
good.
actually know
That's
that.
good.
So
Yeah.
that's good.
Alright,
That's kind of to me, a weird rule, but
Well, it gives us more flexibility.
9 o'clock.
it is.
We've got a lot to do still.
Should we move along here?
Hey,
Okay.
Mark, I meant to ask you earlier, sorry, did we get Brookendale's contract yet or budget?
No, I emailed Shannon today.
Okay,
So my thought is to just, we can tweak it later if we need to, but. I left, for the last couple of years, they've given us the same amount. So, yeah,
it didn't increase a lot last year.
no, it was 29.90 or whatever.
Okay, all right, I just had that in the back of my mind, I meant to ask you earlier.
Yep, good, thank you. Yeah, here it is, so. The budget, if they budgeted 29.90 in 2023, and that's also what the
Where's that?
24 budget was, that's
Which code?
SF 3410.414.
I don't know.
And I should have reached out to them earlier to just, she usually just sends it to me. Let me just check.
Wait, it's SF, right? 3410,
SF 3410.414.
okay.
Line 366 on my sheet.
So what's Speedsville WC versus Speedsville contract?
Workers' comp,
Say that.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that's workers' comp.
Okay,
Yeah, we buy their workers' comp.
they're the only ones we buy it for?
The Speedsville, Brookdale purchase their own,
Okay,
so.
but there's no
I-
WC for Brooksondale? Or,
Right, so, Speedsville, the reason that's budgeted in there is because we pay for Speedsville's worker comp.
okay,
Um,
oh, but the, Sladeville and Brookendale, we don't?
We don't,
Okay,
and I don't understand all the reasons for that, there's a history to it, but.
okay,
But we group purchase, the town purchases it, and then they pay us back.
okay.
So with that, with the changes that I've offered tonight,
Mhm.
I would, the amounts I put in, you'll see at the very bottom of the spreadsheet. That puts us just below the tax cap.
By $1,000,
by $1,358.
okay. I just want to make sure I'm reading this right.
From the what?
I just wanted to make sure I was reading it correctly.
That's right.
Okay.
So with that, I would offer a resolution to approve this as the town's preliminary budget for 2025.
Second.
Seconded by Tim. Any further discussions? Are people ready to do that? Is that okay?
Just a clarification,
Absolutely.
um,
We're not adopting the budget.
yeah, right, so. Is there another iteration or is it goes from this and then you work on it some more and you
Yeah, I
get
should say
data and then it comes to another board meeting and then we vote on a final?
Yeah, so what I would like to do now is approve these changes. And then set a public hearing for the preliminary budget. So that's the wording I'll use for this resolution. I'll say. Resolved, the town board approves these changes to the tentative budget. And sets the public hearing for 7 p.m. on November 6th. At the town hall.
So second that.
Seconded by Kate. Does that process make
I'm
sense?
not sure. Okay.
So, yeah, it's okay. No further questions. I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great. So we will hold the public hearing at the first meeting in November and go from there.
And then, so Jonathan, then the next step would be ideally after the public hearing, solidifying any changes and then voting on the final budget at the business meeting in
January,
November. Right?
Yeah, so at the public hearing, I will give a budget presentation at the beginning. Like information session or whatever, and then we'll accept any comments at the hearing. And if everything's hunky-dory, then we would be prepared to vote on it that night or subsequently, so. I think we could well vote on it after that meeting, if we don't, if we don't have
major questions that need to be answered.
concerns that
Yeah.
but we'll have time to do that if we do need to, so. Great. Great, thank you.
Did you want, you're gonna do the resolutions that are still here?
Let's see, did we vote on the,
We
we voted on that, right?
Yes.
Yep, we did.
So we're all good there. So we do have some more, let's see.
Things here, so. Fine. Review of the disaster plan, committee's discussion,
Yeah,
budget transfers resolution.
so the next item of business was, do you want to go through the disaster plan,
well,
Michelle?
Or do you want to save that for another time when we're done, so it's not so long?
I think that'd be great.
We're gonna have a busy meeting next time also,
Yeah.
so.
Well, I'll just summarize the, so I just. summarize.
Okay.
Let's just look at it briefly. So I think I should have, so basically, you know, when if there's a disaster, there's the first call that you call right away. And in every case, you call 911. And I shouldn't have put Pleasant Valley Electric and David Cole and all that there, because it's always 911. And I talked to Greg Harrington about
Great.
this. And he said it's like, they could be busy on another call or something, so the 911 dispatch will
Yep.
send the right person here.
Great,
But then if, you know, the second call you would make, so first I called 911, then I would call Mark. That's the second call, and then I would call Tim,
Who is making the call?
whoever it is, whoever's here. So, yeah, could be Kate, it could be Jesse, it could be you know,
But after hours, so would that then be?
that, so I have,
One mix of calls, somebody, who calls Mark in other words?
um,
You know what I'm asking? I just don't understand.
Tim during working hours and after working.
yeah, call him during working hours, and I have you down as after hours.
But what I don't understand is,
Yeah.
who would we expect to get a call from? How does this
Whoever
work?
is reporting the emergency.
Yeah, whoever discovers it.
Oh,
So the person makes 3 calls, they call 911,
Yeah.
then they say,
I get what you're
then they
saying.
call Mark,
Yeah,
and then they call Tim.
yeah.
Okay. That's fine.
So that's the basic thing. So then there's like, yeah, you know, each thing has an emergency team.
Mhm.
So Mark is the administrator and Tim is the leader. I'm the preservation resource. So you would, you know, all these people would be called. And then I just went ahead and put the town board on, the whole town board.
Okay.
Yeah,
They were the disaster team.
Yeah. And
Then
then,
get t-shirts?
yeah, we should, yeah. And then if it's like,
I love it.
if it's in the town offices, and we would also call, you know, Jesse and Velvet.
That's like a.
Mhm.
And I did put Greg Harrington.
Disaster team.
And then the code officer and Bobby.
Okay,
But if it's at the town library, it's like the first 8 people.
Right.
And then the librarian, you know, Gail Moran,
Mhm.
and then Cindy Nicholson.
Okay.
I haven't talked to them yet, but you know. And then if it's in the history room, you know, same first group.
Yeah.
And then Barbara Cohn and then Jennifer. And if they need additional people, it would be Becky DeWitt and Dick White.
Okay. Mhm.
Now, the town hall, I have no contact information for the justices because they want us to just handle it. So
It is what it is.
it is what it is. That's what I figured.
break down the door.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so then the rest of it is just, you know, the locations of the emergency systems, and Mark and I were talking about this. So the shut off valves and stuff, and so we're sure about the shut off is in the crawl space for the other building. Were you gonna check on that? I forget what I have here. I think I changed it on my own copy, but not this one.
Circuit breaker between the state.
So Mark, can I just make a suggestion for that we should have a map, a specific
A map of all these things.
With a,
locations for
yeah.
the shut-offs,
Yeah, that's all.
yeah,
That's a great idea.
where they are, and,
Labeled,
I mean, I have no idea, so at some point, just.
so like the water shut off, like,
Yeah.
should be labeled.
That's a great idea.
yeah, so Greg said
Yeah, interesting.
he had been thinking about going through and physically labeling them, but I don't know if he did. Maybe we could talk to him again about it, but that was kind of my message. I think we need better maps. I mean, you sent me a couple maps, which are, the one is good, the one is small, the one for,
The floor plans?
yeah. But we need floor plans, because you're supposed to put like where the fire extinguishers are located.
I might have some better ones
Yeah,
for you. I'll see.
but then also I think we should have maps of the crawl space and the downstairs for the shut
I'm
offs.
just standing up for a second.
And everything else, I just have emergency services, once again, it's 911, I don't have anything for janitorials, once again, I took this as a template, so. I don't have anybody for janitorial services or carpenter. My question about the insurance was, does our policy cover remediation of contents, like, if we had to have things freeze-dried and stuff?
I didn't find that out. I was
So,
probably supposed
Do
to,
you think I
right?
should call, I have Jeremy Bolin, is that what I
Yeah.
could call?
Well, I would say call, Paul Neske.
Paul Nesky, I'll call and ask, because I should find out what we need to do for taking pictures.
So I'm gonna email Michelle Paul Neske's info.
I think the only other question I have is, I have the thing on here. So we can make we can sign a no-cost agreement with Polygon, which does, you know,
Sounds good.
freeze drying.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And I attached a copy of what the agreement looks like, and it has to be renewed every 2 years, and I'm just wondering, do you want me to pursue that? I can call the guy back and tell him we want an agreement.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to have something set up.
Yeah,
It doesn't cost anything, right?
Right, and he said they would also send somebody out and tell you what things are, you know, vulnerable or whatever, so if we want to do that or not, but.
sounds like you did the research that would recommend them.
Well, first of all, a Servpro never got back to me. I mean, I did include them as a secondary, but they never got back to me. They were gonna have somebody call me back. And the Polygon, you could set up a Zoom call with them and we had the call. And I have worked with Polygon in the past. I didn't realize.
Does the
that.
library use Polygon?
Yeah.
Well, then they're familiar with the area, so it makes sense.
And he said that the New York State Fort used them also.
Okay.
So,
That's great.
because I asked them if they were, background checked and all that stuff because of the material, and he said, yeah, and that the New York courts had used them, so.
Okay, great.
But then when I talked to Susan Barr, she said it didn't sound like there was anything they would want recovered
Or
or
recovered.
preserved.
What's all that to do about?
Because she said it's all backed up at New York State.
But she was gonna check on it.
She was gonna check on it.
I'm really
I'm
confused.
leaving that to them. I feel like, yeah, I'm presenting the plan, and as far as the importance people put to their collections is not my purview. Access it.
Yeah.
Happy to help, but.
That's right.
State. So, so I think
And then
that's
we
just a
would-
summary of this. So it's just really who you call. That's really
Okay.
what this is about.
That's great. I mean, the take home for me is like, we need to get some site maps and things.
We need the
that help
maps.
people.
And the other thing that Greg mentioned, I mentioned to you that you said was a good idea, that we should have a lockbox on the
Oh, yeah.
outside of the building so that the fire department or emergency services can
Get the key.
get the key.
Yeah,
Otherwise, they will break the door down, but they'd rather just use a key.
yeah, it's called something like a Knox box, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Something that-
Isn't
Knox,
it? Knox?
I had to do that for my job.
NOx, KNOX.
I just assumed it was lockbox, but anyway.
And which is the first fire response for these buildings?
Well, it's just gonna be it was probably gonna be Sladeville, but it's whoever's available.
Cause you need to call every single fire department and tell them where the box is.
Yeah, and,
Okay.
So
and
whoever
also.
shows up first.
Yes, and also we have to register, we should have a special code in our code lock for 911. And that you register that with 911, you tell them what it is, so that they can,
So you mean they can use a keypad?
yeah. So you have to give them a code,
Okay.
and then you call them up and register with them. So I would say the priorities would be the maps of the shut-offs and wherever the fire extinguishers are. Although nobody's gonna look at them, people should familiarize themselves with where they are. Yeah, and then the very last, like, I don't know how detailed you wanna get into this stuff. There's this whole chart, assesses and estimates the type and extent of the damage, like who that would be. Contacts the insurance company, I put you down for that. But reviews collections priority list, I put whoever, the town clerk, town librarian, or town historian. Some of it I left blank, because I just, didn't know. Estimates the number of personnel needed to complete the work and how long recovery will take. I don't know. Forever. Ensures proper documentation of damage. So I'm assuming that might be somebody like Jesse,
Or, yeah,
because I think you need that for the insurance company.
or me,
Or you, do you want me to put you down,
maybe.
for that?
Not like I wanna do it, but that's probably.
Some of this I'm putting down your title because, in case you're not here forever.
Absolutely, yeah.
Here's the town supervisor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Identifies locations for storing materials out of the building. I just put the town board.
Fine.
Handles all public relations, provides communication with workers, interacts with the town board. I don't know who we would put for that.
Interaction.
So I don't know, so the last few pages, if you've got ideas for who should be these people.
Salvage off, it's,
I mean, this plan is.
yeah,
We can jettison parts we don't think.
Oh, yeah, and it's really geared for libraries and,
it's really thorough and I like that. It's reminded, my grandmother was, flooded in Corning in 72 and I just remember all
oh,
the
yeah.
mud and the paper and the documents that were.
Was she a librarian then, or?
She was not, everything was just, I don't know if you knew, but everything was just,
Yeah, I saw a presentation from the librarian at the time,
um,
talking about how they had to.
I can't even imagine, yeah, Aiden's Order the Arrow project was shoveling mud out of the library down in Appalachian a couple of years ago. So
Anyway.
Great.
yeah, I don't think we're gonna have a
Really
lot
good
of
work,
here,
Michelle.
but it
Well,
is-
I don't think it's much, but anyway, well, thanks, thank you. So,
It wasn't there before.
true.
So-
We're gonna give you a badge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then my suggestion would be that, we finalize it. And that we have each of us has a printed copy, maybe to
Okay.
keep at home. The other thing is, at the end, there's even more stuff you can print, like how to handle certain collections. But I don't know if you noticed this, at the end, it says what to do if there's a fire. If a fire occurs in your area, one, remain calm. Like, call the fire department.
Shut the hell out.
Yeah.
Remain
Yeah.
calm depending on the circumstances.
Yeah, but it is like how to do this stuff. So maybe it's worth just
Reading
calling a
through,
meeting
yeah.
and going
Well,
over this.
You know,
stuff.
we've been talking about this for a long time of having an emergency drill plan. If something awful were to occur,
Yeah, sure,
what people should do and where they should go.
Yes,
because we had
Should be
talked
part
about
of it.
using that door there.
I mean, this starts off with the emergency, with an employee evacuation.
If you're in the new town hall, there's nowhere to go
Right.
but through the door where you might be being aggressed by.
Oh. Well, so look at these emergency procedures. One thing Greg really impressed on me was the thing, and I added that, was the whole thing, if there's a gas leak,
Yeah,
to make sure that you just close the doors, that you don't open windows or anything like that.
Is that right?
Because adding oxygen can make it worse.
Uh-huh.
So it's basically get out, call 911,
Yeah,
and as you go, shut the door.
yeah, carefully.
Yeah, yeah, it's like,
maybe it would be worthwhile having just asking Greg to come and give us a 30-minute presentation to the staff and everybody
Yeah.
just about these procedures,
yeah.
so everybody's on.
Yeah, I mean, there's a thing in here, like if there's a medical emergency for staff that I thought was interesting, avoid unnecessary conversation with or about the ill or injured person. You might add to the person's distress or fears, increasing the risk of medical shock. I mean, but just
There's blood.
general information. So I think it might just be worth people familiarizing themselves and then having
Yeah,
a workshop
yeah,
to go over it.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So that everybody that works in these areas knows what should happen.
great.
Great.
So that's. my
Power
suggestion.
outage.
And then we all have it, and then sometimes institutions have talked about putting this stuff online. But the thing is, it's got a lot of phone numbers,
Yeah.
so I would just say that we have printed copies, in the town hall.
Right.
Yeah,
I
And
do
if
too.
the power goes out, it's hard to get online.
Yeah.
Or if.
Yeah, so we finalize that everybody has copies, and you have copies in the library and everything. So- Oh, one last question was the whole thing about having the disaster kit. Which is like usually paper towels and plastic and stuff like that. I don't know how far you wanna go with that, that could be, a few $100s. Or we could just get some plastic and paper towels and call it a day.
I mean, I guess I would defer to your judgment for like necessary things. for-
Yeah, I thought we talked about a Foot Locker, right?
Yeah, that's how they often are. I'll try to get some prices and come up with a cost so that, and maybe it's something we wanna buy next year or something.
We might have an historic Foot Locker already up there.
I could use, somebody else was talking about using that. Yeah, I mean, often what happens is people raid the Foot Locker for day-to-day items that they need, like usually you have extension cords and you have, rubber gloves and. I mean, we don't know if we're ever gonna use one, so I just don't know how far to invest in
Yeah.
that.
We'll have to mount cameras.
I can't-
I have a big bag full of something in the car that I bought for my daughter.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll make a list, I'll hone that list down a little bit about things I think might be practical to have
Okay,
and give that to you,
okay,
all right? That's my final.
Great.
great, thank you so much, Michelle. That's
Thank you.
great. Do we want to have the town committees discussion tonight? Maybe we can put that off.
I think we can put that off.
Or your liaison to ag, right? Already, we did that.
What? We didn't.
We didn't do that?
There's nothing to report, really.
Yeah, there's no, I'm just,
It was a discussion about who's on which.
Oh.
committees.
I had thought we might want to have a discussion about town committees.
We don't need to do that.
I can't.
Good.
And nothing's happening with nothing's happening with the planning board. They haven't met for a while.
What's that?
Okay.
The-
The planning board hasn't met for a while, so
Yeah.
I don't have anything to report for that.
Okay, yeah. I was just thinking about,
We can't approve the vouchers because they haven't been,
I was thinking about the youth committees.
yeah,
And, you know,
because that's empty.
things like that,
Yeah.
so it's a discussion for another day, we'll put that on.
Yep. Okay.
So, I do want to offer a budget transfer resolution, because I lined a whole bunch of them up. And so, did you guys get a copy?
Yep.
I printed a whole bunch, so I guess I'll offer the transfer resolution for the following transfers. 200 from contingency to supervisor contractual, 500 contingency to public information, 200 from town hall equipment to town hall contractual, 600 from town hall equipment to town hall IT, 2,200 from A51, from highway garage equipment to the improvements, because some more charges came in there. 1338 from contingency to youth, because we were a little under budgeted there for this year's youth thing, so. And 9750. These are the last four are just movements between highway personnel lines to put them in the black, right? Just moving money from one personnel line to another. There are like 4 different personnel lines, depending on if you're cutting brush or repairing an engine or plowing a road. So, with that, I will call for a second for this transfer.
Second,
Second by Michelle. Does anybody have any concerns or questions? If none, call for a vote. All in favor?
I,
Opposed? Offer a budget adjustment resolution of $134,500.58 to increase the expenditure line for CHIPS, DA 5112.2, and also by the same amount, increase the revenue line, DA 3501. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Tim. Do I have questions? Does that make sense to people? So what happened was, in today's bills, Bob put in the payments to contractors for roads work that qualifies for CHIPS from reimbursement from the state. And the total for that that he's submitted and that we qualify is greater than what we budgeted. We budgeted 200 in both of those lines. So I increased it by the amount that covers that. It's like $300,000. So this is just increasing the revenue line and the expenditure lines by exactly the same amount, so that it doesn't change the budget whatsoever, right? So we're spending it today, and later in the year, the state will send us back the money and it'll fill those things up, so that's what that's all about. Are we ready to vote? All in favor? Aye.
I,
Opposed? Offer resolution to pay the town bills in the amounts of A Fund, $53,857.42, DA Fund, $331,312.38, Streetlight Fund, $92.92.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Kate.
So they haven't been initialed yet.
I initialed them,
You initialed, them. Yeah,
so,
okay, that's good.
and I'm counting on
I'll be in
I'm
the
Coming in the
to
morning.
complete the
I'll be in.
meeting tomorrow.
Maybe I'll be in later morning sleep. Yeah,
We both need to do it.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it was okay.
Yeah. I think so. I'm not calling another meeting to do this. That's a really important thing we do,
I
so.
know.
So with no other questions, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. So do audit the vouchers tomorrow, if it is important that we do that.
Minutes.
It's official because it's in an email that I said I was coming. So I have to.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
the email.
I said it even.
Like a public record.
We still need to approve them.
I never had a chance to check my email after like 4 o'clock, so.
yeah, so, yeah, does anybody have comments on the minutes for Jesse?
Great,
Great, okay,
Yep,
great minutes.
yeah,
thank you, Josie.
Thanks, Jesse.
thank you. And,
We need
do people have capacity for,
for 5 or 10 minutes.
okay,
I
exactly.
think we should.
So I will offer a motion to call executive session, to discuss personnel issues with the code department.
Okay,
That means you
that
can't.
means you can't stay.
You can't stay.
You can stay now, but
That's so much fun.
Feel that I'm
You
staying.
did?
Staying
You
through it.
stayed
Wow.
full
I'm
discussion.
really impressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Been enjoying, so thank you for letting me be a fly on the wall.
Oh.
Oh,
I didn't know.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
been great.
public, you can come anytime.
Every
Will
Wednesday,
someone,
yeah.
will someone call a second for executive session?
Yeah.
Second,
Just get
Second,
rid
if I
of it.
can.
First, it's the first and third Wednesday.
First and third Wednesday.
Yep.
Yeah.
Take a
That's
vote
how
on
all
executive
this
session then.
every once a month, or is this?
twice a month,
Twice a
first
month.
and Wednesday.
Twice a month, town hall, twice a month.
Always here,
Always.
first and third Wednesdays,
Yeah.
typically.
Thank you guys.
Thanks.
We need to vote on
Yeah.
Good night.
Thanks,
We need
Eric.
to vote on
Michelle,
executive-
Do we need to vote on?
Kay, Mark, and Jonathan.
Jonathan,
All
yeah,
right.
very good. Okay,
Do we need to vote on
see
executive?
you here.
Yes.
We did. So, all in favor of executive session, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
So, yeah, thanks,
Thanks, Jesse.
Jesse.
Have a good night.
Yeah. Executive session